This is the Mom Curious podcast, where we say the quiet part out loud about womanhood, motherhood, and everything in between.
And I still have a couple of the vials.
Shut up!
No, you shut up. I kept them. So
You're just hoarding sperm?
No.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
That was a joke. 30, like my mid-30s, when like my body started changing and stuff after shitting out 3 kids.
Stop taking advice from people on the internet, like myself included.
And I didn't realize how heavy that would be, and that loving my children would not be enough to make me not a basket case.
And that gave me the freedom to do something for myself.
And it's an adventure that is not just all doom and gloom.
You know better, and if you didn't, now you know better. Welcome back to the Mom Curious podcast. We are doing something a little bit different, actually very different. We've never posted 2 episodes in 1 week, but these are different and crazy times, and I know that our audience will be so grateful to hear from our guests today, Jamshid Sharmahd and Walid Phares, who are Middle East experts. Gazelle, I wanted to just say that I have been following you for so long. I know that you've been raising your daughter while also trying everything in your power to save your father from captivity in Iran. I was hoping that we would be filming this in celebration of his return, and I am just so sorry. I want you to know that we are, so many of us, mourning the loss of Jamshid Sharmahd, who is a hero, truly. And I wanted to extend my sincerest condolences to you. I'm really grateful that we are meeting, and perhaps they say in Hebrew it's b'shaa tova, it's in a holy time, because I know you're extremely busy weighing in on what's going on in Iran today, along with your partner in the opposite of crime, Walid Phares. I am so grateful that you brought him along, because we have a lot to learn from you. I won't keep you too long, so why don't we actually ask the first question? Why should we care about what's going on in Iran? Why should a listener of Mom Curious care what is going on across the world in the Middle East right now? Perhaps either one of you can answer that question for us.
Giselle.
Let me begin. First of all, thank you so much for having us and for your heart. The people of Israel, the Jewish community, is the one that most can understand what the Iranian people have gone through, what my family has gone through. When you're facing savages, when you're facing an Islamist terrorist regime that is out to get you and to kill you and to murder you, and they will not stop no matter what you do. They will not stop until they're gone. So we share the same pain, we share the same goals, and so we don't have to explain to people in Israel why this should concern them. But maybe to the audience outside of the Middle East, those who are in Europe, those who are in America, those who are in Canada and Australia, who think, what does that have to do with me? I'm here raising my daughter. Well, I was also here trying to raise my daughter. I was in fact 5 months pregnant when this regime kidnapped my father on a flight overlay in Dubai and took him to Iran and tortured him for 4.5 years, and then murdered him, and then desecrated his body, mutilated him into pieces. And just getting his body back was a war that we had to fight against this regime for 1 year, until we put him to rest here in Los Angeles. So there is no borders, there is no protection. Even here in America, they sent assassins to murder my family in 2009. We have seen during the last 2 years, at least very visibly on our campuses, the intifadas, the Islamization, the terror, the threats to our Jewish community. And we know it doesn't stop there. They start off with one group of people, and then they extend further and further and further. So if you are mothers, if you want your children to be raised in freedom and peace and have an education here in America, on American soil, then we have to all open our eyes and see where is this Islamization coming from. Our students didn't just wake up one day and wanted to have an intifada on our campuses and have encampments, and this brainwashing is the result of years and years of indoctrination, of years of infiltration of our media, of our academia, of our young children, which are victims. Like I don't look at our children and our campuses as evil or as enemies. They're victims of a brainwashing machine that is trying to turn them against their own allies, against their own country, against everything that humanity stands for. So as mothers all over the world, we should be protecting our children from these regimes that, when they are in power, which you saw in Iran, the Islamic regime, murder children, apply Sharia law, torture children, hang them from cranes. So this is something that concerns everyone, because Iran before 1979 was like America. So it can happen within generations that you don't recognize your country anymore. So in order to prevent that, we all have to pay attention to what's happening in the Middle East.
Thank you so much. I just want to say that my family is actually, half of my family is from Iran. My grandfather was born in Esfahan, and we live with Persian culture, like Persian food, Persian rugs, Persian music. The people of Iran are our allies, they're our heart and soul in my family, but also, they're just like everybody else. They deserve freedom, but I think some people have heard that, okay, we're trying to free the women of Iran. Of course, Mahsa Amini, it was a symbol of women life freedom for some time. But there are some talks of perhaps, the United States getting in on this and it being a distraction from, the Epstein files, which is a real stain on our country, or for other reasons that are selfish. And I know, Walid, you have worked in policy. You are a Middle East expert. You've written books on this. Perhaps you can weigh in on why the United States would be involved in something like this. I mean, I don't want to be in war. I don't know any person who does.
No one wants to be in a war. Nobody, including the jihadists after they destroy the infidels, of course. Then they'll have the peace they want, the salam they want. But all these arguments that we're hearing and we're listening to, such as why are we attacking Iran, why are we doing this, or the Epstein files, all of this is part of a war of ideas, of a propaganda war. The aim of why they are trying to stop our administration, with a bipartisan support, by the way, from liberating or lending some support to the Iranian people, as we've tried to do to many other civil societies, from Darfur to Lebanon to elsewhere, and as we are also supporting the Jewish people in Israel. All that effort is to actually stop the jihadists from coming to our country. We are just lucky that last year the Trump administration was able to shutting down the border to make sure that radicals, should they be pro-Hezbollah, should they be Al-Qaeda, Nusra, etc., do not cross the border and be active here. Look what they've done in Mexico. The vision of the cartels, which some of whom were trained by Hezbollah, they deployed in all these cities. This could have happened this year here. We're just lucky. And I think sometimes our victories are luck to have an administration that is not the Obama and Biden administration, lucky to have still a majority in Congress, although the jihadists are organizing and funding their own networks to take over, to create groups, to change the balance inside Congress. But the essence of it is that we have two threats coming from the region globally. One is the Islamic regime in Iran, the Khomeinists, born in 1979 through a coup. I was there, and meaning in the Middle East, and I witnessed the coup. I lived also 15 years of war, entire 15 years of war out of Lebanon. So I've seen the Assad forces invading, the Israelis countering them, Hezbollah being born, the Islamists, all of it. But what I've seen that made me actually leave and come here and have most of my adult life in the United States is that I knew and I realized that all what these jihadists are trying to do in the Middle East is to take over, and then they're not going to stop. They're going to be coming here. And we've seen that just out of a agreement or the Iran deal, the infamous Iran deal that the former administration has concluded, $150 billion was paid to that regime. $150 billion, 10%, that's what brokers make, is $15 billion. So now we understand, and Giselle was talking about the propaganda wars, the campuses here. It's not that simple. Money was deployed on our campuses from shining sea to shining sea, simply to change what has been taught in our classrooms. And where do the classroom go? It goes to the newsroom, and the newsroom to the art room. That's in Hollywood, and to the courtroom, and to the war room. So there was an actual invasion happening, not just in the Middle East. There was an invasion happening here. And what is the evidence? Well, over the past few years, since at least October 7, but I've seen it before, we have hundreds of thousands of supporters of globalize the Intifada. There is an army of jihadists inside, and various levels of jihadists, some for propaganda, some, as Giselle said, they didn't even know that they were impacted by that. So that's why it is important for the American public to support a resistance in the Middle East of civil societies who wants to stop the expansion of the jihadists. And the peak of this resistance is now being done by unarmed people, by the Iranian people. And they lost unbelievably the highest numbers of any nation in the Middle East could lose to the jihadists. Some say 35, 40, 50. The Iranian opposition says maybe up to 80,000. That's catastrophic. That's genocidal. And that's why we have a moral obligation to support, not just because it is moral, it's also geopolitical. If we don't stop them there, they're going to come here. They are already here.
I know that there are many of my listeners, actually myself included, who are not Trump fans. And I wonder, I see this intervention on behalf of the United States as a very good thing for the Iranian people who are begging for freedom, who are celebrating in the streets after Khomeini was taken out. I see it as a very good thing. As you said, I have my own biases as a Jewish person. I see it as good for my family in Israel, certainly, but I also see it as a good thing for myself and my children here, given all you've mentioned about the funneling of funds to change our education system, etc. I see that in the public schools and certainly in the campuses. But I wonder, I actually posed this question to the listener, like, is it possible to not back the president, but to back these efforts? Like, to see this particular strategic move at this time as a good thing, even though you don't like this administration. I'm wondering if you can weigh in on that.
Of course you can. Let me weigh in on that. I've never been a fan of any administration, of any politician, because I try to evaluate policies and look at what is pro-America, what helps us here, what helps us in domestic politics, what helps us in national security. So all of our fights, which is absolutely normal in any democracy, you should have the right to criticize. You have the right to like or not like your administration. You have the right to protest and all of that kind of stuff. If you want to remain those rights in your country, you have to make sure that we are protected. So these kinds of debates, these kinds of like hate and these kinds of like pretty much like almost like the deranged going against the person, not even looking at the policy or at what we're doing for America, those used to stop at the border. When it came to protection, when it came to war, when it came to what is in the interest of America, so foreign policy, that is where it should stop. We are at war with Islamists, not because we choose to, because they chose to, because they didn't stop, because they, from the time of 1979, when they were created, by the way, with the blessing of the Carter administration, they took the US embassy hostage for 444 days. So this is not something that happened last week and we're reacting to it. This is something that they have done. They've waged war on the Iranian people, on the Middle East, with all of their proxies in every single country, on Europe, on America, for 47 years. And now we're at this point where we cannot avoid this war anymore because we see attacks on our president. I mean, like, this is just like, imagine any other country trying to assassinate our president. This is a declaration of war. And we've stood by, and administration after administration has done either nothing or has supported these Islamists. And that's why we are at this point. So we can look at policies, regardless of who we like, who we vote for, or how we like their domestic policies, and understand, is this in the interest of the American people, yes or no? If we're standing on the other side, on whose side are we standing? If we're standing on the side of Islamists that scream death to America, and they're not doing that as a linguistic exercise or something, that's their policy, that's what they want to do, then we have to see, like, unfortunately, we're on the wrong side of history here. We had the same problem before we went to D-Day, before we went to war with the biggest genocidal regime that was Hitler. We had people coming and saying, no, why we're at war with Hitler? He's not against us. Well, it took us too long, and that's why it turned out into a big world war that killed millions of people. We have to wake up earlier, and this is in the interest of us here in America.
You mentioned Islamists, and I just want to say, I know this should be obvious, especially given my platform, really hoping to give as much voice to as many different people as possible. But Islamists are very different than Muslims.
Yes. Yeah.
I just thought I should say that loud and clear in case there's any.
Loud and clear. This is not a war on a faith. If we're talking about Muslims, if we're talking about Islam, we're talking about faith. Faith includes praying, what we eat, what we wear, your belief. That is faith. Islamization is not faith. Islamization is a political warfare on a civilization that takes them then to jihadism. What is jihadism? Violence to establish a caliphate, to force Sharia law on a people. So we're taking jihadism and Islamism on one side. So when you're taking out the political warfare and the actual military warfare, you can have a democratic society with every faith, be it Judaism, Christianity, no faith, atheism, whatever it is in there. But we have to distinguish your right for faith, your right to believe, from the right to kill somebody, from the right to indoctrinate, from the right to take over governments, building policies that are destroying a country from within. So this is a clear distinction between those two.
What are you feeling now that this mission is underway, Walid?
Well, it's in the middle of the mission, and usually when you are in the middle of the wave that is rolling and rolling, you just try to understand if it's going to go all the way. That's number one. And second, what is needed now to make sure that this wave of liberation is going to happen. You have to be very courageous because you have multiple opinions, you have multiple interests. Each one wants to end that war on their, on their terms, so on and so forth. So to sum it up very quickly, I think the war planners of the United States are among the best. Now we could discuss politicians, we could discuss anybody, Congress, the administration. Our people are really excellent, and they're coming from excellent places around the world. First is to take out the navy of the Islamic regime. Very few people understood why, because all the critique going against the administration, and I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican, our administration, U.S. administration, the criticism was coming, first of all, from whom? From the same lobbies who have been funded. So I don't think in academia we have people who are neutral and trying to be the judges. It's all won by them, and we are a minority. I, as a professor of political science, I'm in an absolute small minority in the body of professors of Middle Eastern studies, like 2,400 or 600. They probably are 50 who argue like Gazelle and I, very small. And that has to change, and that need to be the next battle of reforming education. But based on this, the administration was able to quickly end the navy of the regime, then is depleting and almost ending the Air Force. So you are picking up and taking all these layers away. And of course, there are now Israel and the United States are destroying the ICBMs, long-range missiles. So these are the arms of the regime. And of course, the leadership, they did as much as could be done, which is crazy. I've never seen anybody throughout modern history being able to eliminate large segments of the leadership. Well, Israel gave a big demonstration during the 12-day war. And now the concentration is enabling the Iranian population of all ethnicities and of all regions of Iran to be able to seize the institutions, which, by the way, are all coming from that amazing genesis in the sense of politics, a tweet or post by President Trump at the beginning. Remember who it was? He encouraged the Iranian people to demonstrate, seize the institutions, identify the killers. And you know what that means, identify the killers? That there is an international special tribunal that will come and prosecute every single one who killed people on the streets, people in Evin prison and other prisons, or assassinating people around the world, as they've done, for example, with Giselle's father and many friends that I know. So this is a cascade moving forward. Now, what we need to do is make sure, and I made that case on TV today, that the administration will start fast enough to identify and recognize a transitional government. We like it or not, we need to have a partner on the ground. And I made the funny case, not so funny, when I was asked on TV, okay, so what would the Guard do, the Sepa Pasdaran or IRGC, if they want to collaborate? The president said, well, you have to lay down your weapons. And my question, my comment immediately, to whom? Should they bring those weapons and just put them on the sidewalk? No, you need to have, like in France during liberation, a government, a transitional government with resistance on the inside, and walk with us, specifically because we don't have an army moving. That's a big difference with World War II. We are going under the cover, Iranians are going under the cover of an air force, and basically they need to do it. So that would be my only recommendation. I think we're coming very quickly to that.
Are you optimistic, Giselle?
Oh, absolutely. How can you not be? I mean, and this week is the first week without the most evil person, the most savage person on earth, and just being able to see that, how many of our people wish they would be alive to see this moment happening. 40 of their other commanders and leadership are out. Just this morning, I think the I don't even know what they're calling it, the council that elects the next leadership was blown up while they were voting. So there is no more the Majlis,
the clerics.
It's in Rome. I forgot the name. Whatever. A bunch of clerics coming together and then appointing their next Ayatollah did not happen because they were not able to do that anymore. There is no building. There's none of these clerics there. That means there will be no leadership, even if they go out of their way and appoint anybody else. The Iranian people are not accepting any remnants of this regime as their representatives. Again, this regime is as foreign to Iran as it is to Israel, as it is to America. These are not Iranian people. They don't have Iranian identity. They don't have Iranian ancestry. They don't have Iranian ideology, values, faith, nothing. These are completely foreign to us, to the people of Iran. That's why they're completely rejected for 47 years. And that's why what Dr. Phares just said, this is the moment where sovereignty has to change hands from the occupation forces to the Iranian people. And as we said, the Iranian people, you can't give the weapons or something to them on the streets and say, okay, we're surrendering now. There is a force of resistance that is led by the Crown Prince outside of Iran. And again, the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi is not, right now, he said it himself, I'm not standing here as a king or as a president or anything. The people trust me as a transitional leader because he was able to combine, to form a coalition last year in Munich of all of the opposition forces, from left to right, from all of the faith, from all of the corners of Iran, from Republicans to monarchists, from liberals to conservatives. All of them came together and said, we are under 4 principles united here. We give you the leadership to transform, to transfer Iran to freedom, we have to have somebody that speaks to the troops on the ground, and that is his position right now. So it is very much recommended that our leadership in America and everybody who is working on liberating Iran speaks as fast as possible and coordinates with the transitional leadership to make that transfer of power as smooth as possible and does not let it go into chaos.
Wow. I mean, can you imagine if we could go back to Esfahan and have some like tadig and some gourmet sabzi? And do you think that's going to happen within our lifetime?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. There is no going back. See, like, let me compare that to the people who, again, the best way to understand is after October 7, Israel changed policy from defense to offense, like seeing 1,200 or more of their own people being butchered and then hundreds being taken hostage. That kind of pain, that kind of savagery doesn't make you sit down and have less ambitions to protect yourself. It exponentially increases it. So when this Islamic regime massacred 40,000 people in days, the Iranian people will never go back to being like, okay, we're done with the protest, we're going back to our homes right now. They have the same feelings that we have. If you kill my father, I put everything aside until you're gone. If you kill our children, if you hang them, if you rape them, if you take out their eyes in the streets, unarmed protesters in the streets, you think anybody can ever forget that? So even if they're talking about whatever deals or this and that, this regime is done. It will never survive this because the people can know it's kaput. It's absolutely kaput. We'll never let this happen. So right now we're not talking about the survival of the regime anymore. We're trying to strategize how to take them out in the smoothest way with cooperation. So there's no civil war. There's no chaos inside. They will not go indefinitely what they're doing right now and shooting missiles into civilian populations all over 12 countries. So that needs coordination with the forces inside of Iran, which again are represented by an outside force, which is the Crown Prince of Iran in his capacity as a transitional leader.
Wow.
Can I add a point here?
Add points, Walid.
Let me add points. I got fired up now. So what's going to happen is happening in Iran. It's not going to only be for Iran. Let me repeat that. So when Israel and the United States, and I would say more Israel than the United States because they are much closer to the reality, but of course a majority of American, when that regime will fall, and it will fall, it's the fall of one of the largest jihadi, Khomeiniist, Islamist regimes in the world. They are funding the militias, etc. It's going to be a domino effect, like with the collapse of the Soviet Union. It's not just for Iran. Iran is the center of Middle Earth, to borrow this from the movies. You're going to have the Kurds in Iraq and the moderate Shia of Iraq rising against the militias. You're going to have the rise of the Lebanese against Hezbollah. It may happen also at the same time, maybe at the end of the process in Iran, you're going to see this. You're going to have a defeat of the Houthis in Yemen. You're going to probably have a weakening of Hamas and all their lobbies, because all of that is regime money. So it's going to be all over, and not just the allies of the Islamic regime in Iran, the Islamist regime in Iran. You're going to have the other jihadists, the Salafists. Look what's happened in Syria, the destruction of the Druze, of the Alawites, of the Kurds, of the Christians. All of that is going to reverse. It's not that we want it to reverse, but that's the logic. All these people, when they will see free Iranians in charge, and Iran is not a little place, it's 90 million people, they are all advanced. If you see a return, a partial return at least, of the Iranian diaspora to manage a country like Iran, which will become a superpower for freedom, at least in the region, I don't think the region will continue to be under the control of the jihadists. That's the biggest explosion that will happen, in my view.
As they say, inshallah. I really hope for the best. I wish your father, Jimmy, was alive. I wish my sister, Ariana, was alive to see these Persians on the streets celebrating. I mean, it really is. It's hard to wrap your head around as an American that something so catastrophic, so violent really could be necessary and a good thing, but it is a good thing, you know. This sometimes they say in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm not Hindu, but I've read it, you know, it's like you have to cut as thin a layer as possible so that you don't bleed. But if that doesn't help, you have to go deeper. And at some point it's a metaphor for a war. Like, we don't want this. We don't want it until it's absolutely necessary. And I really do hope that the people of Iran rise up. I really do. I have one last question. I know it's 1:30 and you have a million other TV appearances to get to, but can you just help me understand why on earth our Western media would eulogize Khomeini as like some poetry-loving sweetie pie? Can you help me with this, just as a epilogue?
We can't wait to answer, but Giselle would be the best here now. Follow.
You think, reading what the New York Times and Washington Post wrote, they're talking about Santa Claus, his bushy beard and his like beautiful
Love
smile.
of
And we're like, what? Like it's nothing has changed. Let's put it that way. In the 1970s or 1960s, before this Islamic regime was brought into Iran from France, by the way, on an Air France flight by German and French journalists to take over Iran, you would see it all over Western media, and Le Monde and like whatever, like New York Times back then spoke of him as the spiritual leader who will whatever. So this has not changed. This is for decades happening, that unfortunately back then only the far left or the left media was infiltrated. Now we see even the far right media and far right politicians being infiltrated. So we're talking about money. We're talking about interests. We're talking about lobby groups. This is not somebody's idea or somebody's like opinion. This is interest groups who are paid, making money with this regime in place. And that kind of money, as Dr. Phares explained, whenever you broker deals, whenever you have any kind of deals with Islamists, there is some broker that gets a percentage. That percentage is then what is speaking in the media. That percentage is then what is translated into political talks. That percentage is what is funding podcasters and like these Megyn Kellys and these Tucker Carlsons that are coming out. Without that money, they would not be sitting there and even wasting one word about that. So don't see this as some confusion. Nobody's confused. No. They're making profits. And that is the reality of what we're fighting against. Honest reporting needs to come back to mainstream media. Yeah. Honest reporting is right now in podcasts. It's right now on X. It's right now on social media, because we have no outlets that would let honest reporting come through, because they're controlled by these kinds of money cartels that are out there. But as we said, with the downfall of one of the biggest sources of that money, and we have Qatar and the Islamic regime as those biggest sources, that kind of propaganda and infiltration and manipulation of public opinion will also go down. That is the domino effect that Dr. Phares is talking about. When you don't have money behind it, there is nobody paying you to do these kinds of tweets and talks and articles. Then we will see the shift. And that is the beauty of taking down this regime. So yes, nobody wants war, but the Islamists do, and they started this war many years ago, and now we're at this point where we have no other chance to go in there. But in the end, if we don't do it right now, as we said, the regime is as its weakest point. They call the Islamic regime a paper dragon. That's the moment you take them out, because when this paper dragon becomes bigger and becomes like sanctions are turned away, like under the Obama administration, billions of dollars are coming in. Imagine what will happen to Hezbollah and the Houthis and all of these militias over there. Imagine what will happen to their nuclear program. Imagine how many assassinations and kidnappings will take place at that moment. So no, this is the best moment to do it. It is ugly. War is always ugly. There's always casualties. There's always people suffering. And if we could do it any other way, by talking them out or by condemning them into stopping the killing and the terror, we would do that. We can't.
Yeah,
she's so right.
I'm gonna let you. Oh, you tell us. I was gonna let you go.
You want to let us go now? We just started. No, I
Tell
wanted
us,
just to
Walid.
say I co-sign on everything Giselle said, this whole strategy of funding. But I will add one tiny point. They were smart. They are smart, the jihadists of all kind, the Muslim Brotherhood and the Khomeinists in this case. They have targeted the two nerves that are the basis of our democracy, education. They've controlled our way of understanding them. And they spread it out through our classrooms, Middle East studies, social studies, history studies. That's what the battle is. And of course, from there into the media, as Giselle said, once you control who writes on the Middle East in these big media, you control everything. And that's why many voices like Giselle and maybe another 100 voice coming from the same region being in this have been suppressed. So now is the time. Once that regime in the Middle East goes down, it's gonna be to the advantage of our democracy and freedom here at home.
Amen. Amen. I have so many more questions, but I do know that this is like a very peak time for you, and I'm just gonna let you go, and I'm gonna ask that maybe you just share where we can find you and learn from you, and hopefully celebrate only good things.
Hopefully.
Thank you, thank you. But you can find us on X. That's Free Jamshid Sharmahd. Sorry, on Instagram, Free Jamshid Sharmahd, and on X at Gazelle Sharmahd. I'm also on YouTube at Gazelle Sharmahd, and Dr. Walid Phares is everywhere under his name, Walid Phares.
At Walid Phares, but the
yeah.
problem, you have to spell my name, WALID PHARES. Then you're all over the place. Thank you, Giselle.
There you go. Thank you so much for having us and for everything that you're doing.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been a Hoff Studios production. Executive producer, Laura Lucetti. I'm your host and creator, Daniella Rabbani. Come find me at Daniella Rabbani. My DMs are open and I want to hear everything. Also, if you like the show, please send it to a friend and leave a review because we are in this together. Mwah.